White Boy Rick is a 2018 crime drama directed by Yann Demange. The film is based on real events and tells the story of Richard Wershe Jr., the youngest federal informant and drug dealer in the history of the United States, who was sentenced at the age of 17. Set in the 1980s in Detroit, during a period of deep socioeconomic crisis in the city, the movie follows the life of the protagonist, Richard Wershe Jr., known as White Boy Rick. He becomes involved in drug trafficking on the streets of the city. His father, Richard Wershe Sr., deals in stolen goods, which pushes them both into the realm of illegal activities. At one point, Rick turns to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and becomes their informant. He provides crucial information about local drug dealers, enabling the FBI to arrest them. However, during this collaboration, Rick finds himself in a complex moral dilemma, where he must balance between two worlds: the world of criminality and the world of law enforcement. The film intricately portrays Rick's internal conflict as he grapples with the dilemma of loyalty to his family versus his responsibilities as an informant. His relationship with his parents, particularly with his father, who is himself a criminal, deepens this conflict. White Boy Rick also attempts to depict the socio-cultural atmosphere of the 1980s, when drugs and crime had a significant impact on American society. The film questions the justice system, which could leave juvenile offenders unprotected and susceptible to abuses of power. The cast includes Matthew McConaughey as Richard Wershe Sr., who portrayed Richard Wershe Jr., Bruce Dern, Belle Powley, and others. In conclusion, White Boy Rick is a compelling and gripping film that reveals real-life events from the life of the youngest federal informant in U.S. history. The movie highlights moral dilemmas, socio-cultural context, and the inner world of the protagonist, offering viewers the opportunity to reflect on the complexity of choices and the consequences of their actions. The film White Boy Rick addresses significant issues related to criminality, moral dilemmas, and the influence of socio-cultural environments on the life of the main character. Throughout the film, several key themes are highlighted: youth and criminality. The movie portrays how young individuals can become involved in criminal activities due to challenging socioeconomic conditions. The protagonist, Richard Wershe Jr., is compelled to engage in illegal activities from a young age due to the circumstances he finds himself in. The film demonstrates how youth can be vulnerable to the influence of the criminal world. Moral dilemmas of an informant. Richard Wershe Jr. becomes an informant for the FBI, leading to significant moral conflicts. He finds himself torn between the world of criminality and the world of law enforcement, where his actions may have unpredictable consequences. The divide between his duties and loyalty to his family leaves Rick helpless in the face of a difficult choice. Psychology of relationships. Rick's relationships with his parents, especially his father, who is also involved in criminal activities, deeply impact his decisions and morals. Seeking his father's approval and a desire to avoid his mistakes become pivotal motivations for Rick. Socio-cultural context. The film immerses viewers in the socio-cultural atmosphere of 1980s Detroit. The environment where crime and drugs permeate life sets the overarching context for the characters' actions. Social challenges and flaws within the justice system reflect important aspects of that era. Interactions with authority. Rick's interactions with law enforcement agencies and criminal organizations reveal the problems and shortcomings of the criminal justice system. The relationships between informants and FBI agents become a crucial part of the plot. Opportunities and limitations. The film portrays how circumstances and surroundings can influence a person's life and future. The protagonist grapples with limitations in opportunities and circumstances that shape his choices. In summary, White Boy Rick raises essential themes of criminal activity, moral dilemmas, and the impact of socio-cultural environments on an individual's life. The film presents viewers with complex questions of choice, responsibility, and the consequences of actions, while also delving into the intricacies of the protagonist's inner world.
I couldn't be different, because it was my environment that made me that way.
The beginning of the film shows Richard Wershe Jr. on the streets of Detroit for the first time, capturing the city's atmosphere and its incredible liveliness. The scene where Rick finds himself in the drug environment for the first time portrays his encounter with the darker side of life and his first step into a criminal career.
I chose my own path. I wanted to live a beautiful life.
The moment when Rick becomes an informant for the FBI showcases his resourcefulness, bravery, and opens the door to an entirely different world. Rick's internal monologues when he faces moral dilemmas and uncertainty in his decisions underscore his human complexity. Scenes where Rick tries to find understanding and support in his relationship with his father create a highly emotional interest. The pivotal point in the film where Rick finds himself in a situation that changes his life. This moment brings the conflict between the different worlds he's entangled into the forefront. Out of the blue, police cut him off as an informant. Wershe believes out of fear it would be exposed they had a juvenile informant, which also meant an end to his fast-paced drug dealer glitz lifestyle. But Wershe still had his connections and continued to use them, bringing large amounts of cocaine up from Miami. Although Wershe says he only made one other trip before his bust, law enforcement painted him as one of the most prolific drug dealers ever to reside in Detroit. In 1998, then-Governor John Engler reformed the 650 life law, canceling the automatic life in prison stipulation and giving Wershe new hope: possible parole. He appeared before the parole board in 2003 and had his request denied. In 2010, the parole board denied Wershe's request without granting a hearing. His next chance at parole is set for 2017.
Just saw the movie. Good storytelling overall, and I hope it leads to parole earlier than 2020 for Rick. Unfortunately, no mention was made in the film of why crack cocaine was flooding the streets of U.S. urban areas. The why was the Iran-Contra operation being run out of the White House by George Bush, former CIA director, through his underling Oliver North. While Nancy Reagan was telling kids to just say no to drugs, her husband's administration was up to its eyeballs in exchanging drugs for arms in order to circumvent the Boland Amendment and arm the Contras who were attacking Nicaragua.
Matthew McConaughey and Richie Merritt were so good, great performances. I find it sad that this was a true story, and the thought of a kid facing that sentence way back then. Excellent movie.
As someone who lives by Detroit, this makes me very excited. Hopefully one day we'll get a movie based in Detroit, not about drugs or murder.
I hesitated watching due to low scores. Just watched it. Clearly underrated. It was a great movie, and the character's performance outstanding. The problem I have with this movie is that it portrays him as being blackmailed to be an informant, when really they were getting paid to be informants. They weren't holding nothing over his dad's head. His dad just used his son for informant money.
If a judge ruled that interrogating Brendan Dassey was illegal because he had no parent or lawyer present, I highly doubt a judge would agree with a minor being able to consent to being an undercover agent for the FBI. I don't know what was different in real life from the movie, but in the movie the cops were basically bribing Rick, a minor, when they allowed him to keep the money when he had to do the controlled buys. With the Brendan Dassey case setting precedent, Rick should absolutely sue the FBI if he hasn't already.